When speed is the name of the game, sometimes it's nice to be able to just pick up a saw and make a square cut like this. Now I'm going to check that at the end just to see how we did, but I've got a lot more to say, or at least some more to say about some ways to make a square cut even if you don't have a square. So before I throw down a couple other ways to make a square cut right now, it was 1982. Kelly and I had moved to Wyoming. We had starved out of Oregon. And I'd finally gotten a good job with Wade Welch. He was a custom home builder, and he was a fine fellow. I liked Wayne. He's dead now. But I was working along there, and he liked me, and he was coaching me. And one day he said, Scott, and I was using a tri-square. That's what we used then. He got out his tri-square, and he said, you know, this is a great tool, but you don't have to use it all the time. And that's all he said. And I went back to work, and I began to think about that. And by the time I ran across Larry Hahn and his speed tricks for cutting square cuts, Wade had educated me to where I had begun to have confidence in my ability to make a square cut and never get out of square. Like this. So most of the tricks I'm going to show you now depend on the fact that the skill saw is square on the table and that you can set the skill saw table to be square to the blade. First move. That is square because this is square. Now you just drop the saw in that cut that started and finish it, you got a square cut. Let me do that one more time. Square, square. Good old skill saw. Now Larry Hahn would also show us the complementary method, which is to drop your saw with the front of the table parallel to the edge of the board and push it across. That might do a little better on a 2x6. Drop your saw with the front of the table parallel to the edge of the board and run it across. Let's check that one. Look at that, friends and neighbors. Plenty good for framing. How did we do on the 2x4? Pretty good. Now we've done videos right here in this very spot before about using these saws as a drop saw, right, to where gravity is dropping it in. It's just very sort of intuitive. But if you need something, or if your confidence does not wax strong, let's see if which one of these? I think they're all square. I think everything here is square. Yes, nice and square. Yes, nice. Oh, that was not quite as square. But if you know this is square, and let's say this is a 2x10 or a 2x12, and you don't want to walk back over to the shop or to the toolbox or to your truck for a framing square, you have a square. Put it down, flush, flush, bam. And then you can do the thing if you want, where you can use that like you might use a square block becomes a square. But the thing that is going to be most serviceable day in and day out is to simply train your eye to see when something is not square. Because that's what you're really looking at. If you can recognize that it's not square, well then by process of elimination, you can see when it is square, right? So just begin to do that. You can learn to see when something's plumb. You can learn to see when something's level. You can learn to see when something is square. And so you just start your saw at your mark, wherever your mark is. And right away, you can see whether that's a 90 or not. That is not a 90. That is not a 90. But you bring it around until it is a 90. And I realized that part of what I was doing there was wiggling the saw just a little bit and recognizing when it deviates and therefore understanding when it complies, right? Recognize the discrepancy even if you can't tell when you hit perfection. And then you will end up hitting something that is very close to perfect. So there's two gang cutting methods. I've shown them before in Skillsaw Pro Tips video, but as long as we're doing this right now, we'll do it again. I just threw a mark in here. It's just a mark. And if I need to cut all three like that, there's a couple ways to do it without getting out your square. I run this up here. One measurement, 3 boards. Okay, the related way, and the way that probably is a little bit classier, is to stack them up. I like to make the ends flush on the left on this one. Being a right-handed guy and using a worm drive. And now this time, contrary to the title on the video, I'm going to put a square line on here. Actually, let me do this. Let me get that first block. That's the first block that I chopped off that I told you we would check. Look at that, sports fans. That's an eyeball cut. And they said he's a butcher. So I'm going to use that for my square line. Boom. So the idea here is you set your saw full depth, you cut the top board, and the saw transfers the mark. Measure once, cut 3. So these 3 blocks just happen to have the saw's evidence of how the cut was made. This was the side where I cut from the top, full depth, rolled it over, and finished from the edges. This is a side where I started on the flat and just chased it down with the saw marking the depth and the location and finished the cut. Not too bad. So I'm doing this at a pair of sawhorses. Sometimes sawhorses are a luxury. When you're pieceworking in the tracts, when time matters, you rarely see a pair of sawhorses. Now sometimes, some guys are addicted, but lots of times the way that will get you fired on some crews, the way that OSHA doesn't like, as I've demonstrated before, is to cut over your leg, right? The related way is to cut over your instep. But you'll notice that I didn't cut on the inside of my instep, and you also notice that I didn't cut over my left leg, I cut over my right one. That's to keep your body out of line with the saw. Last tip, back to the sawhorse thing. Closely related to this is when the board can drop free, there's no problem. There's no bind. You're not putting friction on the side of your saw. But if you get between 2 suspended points and try to cut, right here, as the board begins to fall, it pinches on your blade. That's a recipe for a kickback. So at least support it and let one side drop. Somewhere, somehow, gravity's got to take your problem away. Now, I don't know if this is helpful. We've got a lot of other videos about using a skill saw and living to tell the tale. I don't know if we have talked about different ways to cut square without a square. And like I said, when speed matters, speed matters. When accuracy matters, it trumps. Sometimes, with enough practice and with the right techniques, you can hit both those bullseyes at one shot. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.